Yeah, all sorts of shuffling going on now. He'll move up significantly in the next few laps. All these other guys come in the pits. He'll be up into 5th or 6th place, I would say, at least. I think Michel Jourdain Jr., incidentally, must have had a very slow pit stop. He's dropped a long way behind Michael Andretti, who has also got ahead of Andre Ribeiro, so all sorts of shuffling going on.
Bobby Rahal into the pits this time, so Zanardi takes over the lead once again, and he crosses the line. Let's see what the gap between himself and Moore is. There is Bobby into the pits, and the fuel goes aboard, that methanol fuel that these cars use at the rate of less than 2 miles. Oh no, he stalled it! Bobby, what's going on? The experienced man, maybe he's got a clutch problem. Bobby Rahal stalls the engine, they get him going, and that's lost him a couple of vital seconds as across the line come the others. Now then, let's get a bit of a catch-up on the situation. Zanardi has an 11-second lead over Greg Moore. Dario Franchitti is a further 11 seconds behind in 3rd position. The top 3 remain unchanged after the stops. Bobby Rahal having made his stop, well, that'll drop him down a bit. We'll have to see next time round whether he's managed to hold on to 4th position. Don't think so. Maurizio Gugelmin has moved up as a result of all this. And remember, he's got another stop to make, but the others are going to be tight on fuel, and Maurizio will be able to run flat out once he's made his other stop. Presumably, he's going to be able to run flat out in the latter part of the race, so it's going to make life very, very interesting indeed to see whether he can do anything. You're on board with Dario Franchitti at the moment, and Franchitti's up behind Hiro Matsushita, wanting to get past the Japanese driver, and suitably enough, Dario moves out of the way, but I don't know whether he moved out of the way. I think that was a thank you, in fact, from Dario, just a little thank you wave from Franchitti, but he's got Maurizio Gugelmin right behind him, and this is the battle for 3rd place. So, Gugelmin running very well now, 4th place for him, 5th place for Scott Pruitt, who's a few seconds behind these two. You just saw him in the background there. Interesting situation this is now, with Gugelmin, who will have to make another stop, there's no doubt about that. But what Gugelmin needs to do is to push as hard as possible in this point of the race, get as past as many cars as he can, and Dario, well, he's got to be sensible here. It may not be worth risking everything to hold Gugelmin off, because Gugelmin will have to come into the pits again. Let's watch this battle. Franchitti holds the middle line, Gugelmin's going for the inside, but he's not quite there, and Dario's able to turn in safely as they go up through the roller coaster section again.
Yeah, good effort there, nice putting his nose down the inside just so Dario can see it, and Franchitti able to hold his position there, and really doing a beautiful job this afternoon. 3rd place for Hogan Racing. He needs the points. That's the utmost thing in his mind going into this race. Points, points, points. The Rookie of the Year title chase is really between him and Patrick Caponce. They've been the 2 quick guys all year long, but Caponce is no threat whatsoever on these road and street courses. He's brilliant on the ovals, but on these tracks he's absolutely nowhere. He's back in 18th place right now, and Dario Franchitti, he's been very, very quick just about everywhere he's been, but he hasn't been able to get to the checkered flag.
That's right, and remember, we've only got one more oval to go. That's the Super Speedway at Fontana to finish the season, so that stacks in Franchitti's favour, but he does need to get the points, as we said. So Gugelmin continues to chase him in 4th place, Pruitt in 5th. Rahal, after his stop, has now come out behind Pruitt, so that problem that he had getting out of the pits has effectively thrown away all that hard work he did in getting past Pruitt. Meanwhile, Gugelmin's all down the inside. Dario was fairly brave there in deciding that he was going to take the corner come what may, and holds on to 3rd place at the moment. Maurizio is going to have to do something fairly committed, I think, to get past the Scot, who is very intent on keeping his 3rd position at the moment.
Yeah, and all the time Dario Franchitti certainly is losing ground to the 2 leaders. Alex Zanardi running quickly again, already down into the 9s, 1 minute 9.8 last time around, the last 2 laps around in actual fact. And Greg Moore around about 10 seconds behind him, and the gap back to 3rd place, another 14 seconds. So Franchitti might not be quite as fast as Maurizio Gugelmin, but Gugelmin's certainly having a hard time trying to find a way past him, and there is Scott Pruitt closing in behind.
Just looking at the list of cars out of the race, not a particularly long list of retirements yet, and they've been fairly well behaved so far. We've only had the 1 full course caution period. In fact, this race has been run in the past without any yellow flags at all. In the 80s, there was a sequence of 3 races, in 83, 84 and 85, when they didn't have to put the full caution yellows out at all. This time we've only had the 1 so far, and let's hope we can keep it that way and keep it a good, clean race as Franchitti continues to hold off Gugelmin. But watch out for Scott Pruitt, who is catching up both of these guys, and that is going to be an interesting battle. Now then, on board, there it is with Dario Franchitti, the view back to Maurizio Gugelmin. This is another great camera position because it really shows the ups and downs there. You can see the drop as they come out of turn number 9, up the hill once again through the left-hander, and then down into the carousel. And Franchitti still doing enough to hold on to this third place so far. Meanwhile, let me just tell you, further back down the order, that Michael Andretti is in the top 10. Teammate Christian Fittipaldi, let's hear from him now out of the race.
Yeah, something in the gearbox broke. I just lost drive in my car. That was it.
How was the tire wear on your Goodyears? And again, you were on the softer, the option compound.
I was on the softer on the first stint. It wasn't perfect, but the car was hanging in there. At least I wasn't losing ground. And I knew that when I went for the second stint, things would have gone a lot better for me, as they did, because I was on a much harder tire. And the car was handling pretty good. I don't think we were on to win the race today, but a good, solid top 3 finish for sure.
Christian, how are you feeling physically? The leg coming along as you hoped?
Yeah, the leg's coming along just fine. I think, to be honest, I'm happier than ever. I think that I'm really competitive after everything that happened right in the beginning of the year. It's a shame that I'm just not finishing the races, but every race something happens. I hope that one day, things come my way.
Next week at Elkhart's, the next chance.
So Christian Fittipaldi, the disappointment for him, and Maurizio Gugelmin is into the pits for his second stop, just as we were about to show you how close he was getting to his fuel window. So this is the number 2 stop for Maurizio Gugelmin. He, remember, after this should be able to run pretty much flat out, won't have to worry about fuel worries, whereas everybody else will be turning down the wick somewhat, hoping to make it through without another stop, or on the other hand, hoping that there'll be a yellow flag, in which case they'll be able to come in.
Yeah, I reckon I'd be surprised if everybody didn't have to come in for a splash and go maybe 5, 6, 7 laps from the end of the race. I'd be very surprised if that wasn't the case. You know, that might play out in their favour, because in actual fact Gugelmin might be the one who has to save fuel. We've got, what, 26 laps to go at this stage. That's fine, that's well within the window, so he should be able to run pretty much flat out towards the end of the race. He's lost a lot of ground. He's fallen back probably about to 12th place, and he'll need to run hard if he's to make up too much ground before the end of this race. I would say certainly top 6 finishes on the cards here for Gugelmin, but he's got a lot of work to do.
So Maurizio Gugelmin then over the next 25 laps will be trying every opportunity to overtake, but at the moment it's Zanardi who leads more, and Franchitti in Mid-Ohio. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio as we watch Dario Franchitti trying to hold off Scott Pruitt in the battle for third place. But Dario does seem to be struggling. He's been stuck behind Arndt Meyer for a couple of laps. He doesn't seem to have the straight line speed to be able to get past Meyer, which seems very, very strange. And I think Dario is not having a car that's working 100% underneath him. It shouldn't be hard work at all to get past Arndt Meyer, but it is proving to be that case.
Yeah, you certainly can't say that Meyer is holding him up, I don't think. And last lap around here, 1 minute 10.9 for Dario Franchitti, so that's a good second a lap slower than the race leader, and certainly nothing special indeed for Dario. So he's certainly got his work cut out at the moment. He's not really under intense pressure from Scott Pruitt, and he's probably just being, you know, a little bit of conservatism at this stage in the proceedings is probably not a bad idea.
That's right, yes. Maybe it's all the question of fuel. These guys perhaps still trying to make it all the way through without a splash and dash stop to make it through to the checkered flag on lap number 83. We've got 22 laps to go of this 2.25 mile track. Zanardi, you're watching now, has a 13-second lead over Greg Moore. He really has opened up a tremendous advantage. And Zanardi, who took the race win here last year, who has been in incredible form on several occasions this year. Just remember that victory he took in Cleveland, took that fantastic second place behind Mark Blundell in Toronto. Good drive that, didn't take any gambles, was beaten by Blundell on the day. Blundell was able to pull away when it got when the pressure got a bit too close, but it was a good drive from Zanardi in terms of the championship. And here today he's driving another superb race, followed Herta in the early stages and now has controlled the race since then. But back again with Franchitti, and you've got a great view of Scott Pruitt right behind, and still they follow Arndt Meyer. Meanwhile, into the pits comes the Italian Max Papis, and he is running quite a lot further down in 15th position, Max Papis, but we're still running there, so let's hope that there's not too much of a problem for him. Meanwhile, Maurizio Gugelmin, remember, he's down in 12th position, and he won't have to stop, that's for sure, and he can run flat out. Still Arndt Meyer heading this battle between Dario Franchitti and Scott Pruitt. Franchitti in third, Pruitt in fourth, and then there's a bit of a gap back to Bobby Rahal, who's still holding fifth. Raul Boesel in sixth, Andretti seventh, Guterman down in 12th, as I mentioned. Behind Andretti's Jimmy Vasser and Gilles de Ferran. They've got a bit stuck behind Andretti over the last few laps, but what we did see while we were away was that Gualter Sales had a problem, and Gualter, who'd been running very well in 7th place, unfortunately has dropped away. And I think, Jeremy, has he been into the pits?
No, no sign of him, unfortunately. So stuck out on the track somewhere. I think he pulled off to the side of the road, and that's him out of the way. But yet another good run by the young Brazilian driver. Pretty heads-up move. He was one of the only 3 drivers to start on that harder compound Goodyear tyre. He was working very, very consistently for him. He was turning some very good laps. Good couple of pit stops by that Davis Racing crew, and yet more heartbreak for them. They've had some super runs this year, and every time there seems to be some niggly little problem that puts them out of the race, and once again that's the case this afternoon. But another fine run for the young Brazilian Gualter Sales.
So look at this, Franchitti this time perhaps going for the move on Arndt Meyer, almost as if he turned the wick up there and decided that this was the time to go past. And now of course Scott Pruitt has got to do the same thing and find his way past the German driver. But the young German rookie not doing a bad job here. Very inexperienced compared to most of the guys out there, of course. Really coming from the world of Formula 3 and then stepping up to these hugely powerful Indy cars. Not doing a bad job today, though, with the fairly lowly funded team. And there Pruitt goes past him safely, so Scott Pruitt can continue the chase of Dario Franchitti.
Yeah, good. Those two both able to get past cleanly, and the race leader, meanwhile, we're not looking at him on the screen at the moment, but he's actually come up behind Parker Johnson, who's running in 13th place, and it's going to be interesting. Parker Johnson's not renowned as the easiest person to get past, and he's come in for some criticism in the past, certainly this year, and we'll see whether he allows Alex Zanardi clean passage now in this race.
So Franchitti still has Pruitt behind him, and still has to watch his mirrors. Interestingly enough, last year an old mate of Dario Franchitti's was racing here in the IndyCar race. That was Jan Magnussen. Magnussen did the race here last year. Didn't have a particularly successful run. Franchitti certainly going well here today in 3rd place. Let's just watch a moment from that rear-facing onboard camera as Scott Pruitt hounds the back of Franchitti's car up through turn 9 here. Curving straight and then coming around to the final part of the lap. Now on board with Michael Andretti, and he's running at the moment down in 7th place, still with Jimmy Vasser behind him in 8th, and Gilles de Ferran one place further back in 9th. And these 3 have all been running together over the last few laps, but nobody seems to be able to grab an advantage. Just watching them come down to the carousel part of the course. Jimmy Vasser, I can tell you, there he is, in fact, on board with him. You can see he's only a couple of car lengths behind. Meanwhile, Gilles de Ferran has dropped away from these 2 just a little bit. And it seems to be Jimmy Vasser who's now applying the greatest pressure on Michael Andretti. Vasser in the Reynard, Andretti in the Swift, of course, and the Swift concerned, perhaps looking at getting a few more cars out there next year. But I know that Reynard are very, very confident, in fact, that they're going to maintain all of their customers from this year, so there won't be an awful lot of space for Swift to get many cars into the championship next season.
No, but I'm sure they'll have, they want 4 or 5 teams is their goal, and I'm sure they'll have that. Who they'll be, of course, is a different question altogether. But, you know, I think a bit of conjecture might be that Steve Horn has certainly been a close ally of Carl Haas over the years, and I perhaps wouldn't be surprised to see Tasman certainly looking at the Swift, if not plumping for the Swift in the end. Incidentally, Alex Zanardi not only has got past Parker Johnstone cleanly, he's absolutely flying. His last lap around here was a 107.735, which I think is far and away the quickest lap of the race so far. He pulled away from Greg Moore on that last lap by 2 whole seconds. No one even close to Alex Zanardi's pace again this afternoon.
So amazing from Zanardi. What is he doing? I mean, he's got 17 laps to go. He's already got an 18.5 second lead, but he's banging in some quick ones. Does that mean that he's trying to build up a bit of a buffer to come in to put a bit more fuel in, do you think?
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's been kept up to speed with the strategy by the crew, but you know, he's got a pretty handy margin over everybody. And Mauricio Gugelmin, who's the only one who's not on the same strategy as he and everybody else, is well back. He's well back in 12th position. In actual fact, he's the last car on the lead lap, and in fact he's actually in Alex Zanardi's sights right now.
You're looking